Hello and welcome to the next episode, episode 46 of Damani Talks. And tonight we have an amazing guest, somebody I think there is just so much to learn from. And I'm hoping that I can fit all of this in that 45-50 minute period that we have because he's got so much experience, so many different things that he's done, and such an interesting story of how we met. And the journey that he's taken since we met, I think back in 2017.
That's right.
So without further ado, I welcome Akshay Chaturvedi from Leverage Edu. Akshay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anirudh. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've been on the other side as a viewer. I have learned a lot from a couple of the money talks that I've seen in the last couple of months. So absolutely thrilled to be here and looking forward to a conversation.
Great. I don't think I have much time to even do any much more build up because there is so much to talk about that itself is a build up. But to get started, Akshay, maybe what would really help is if you could give a little bit about what Leverage Edu does. We'll come back to the topic obviously a little bit more deeper. But what does Leverage Edu do
Sure. So, no,
and your
very
role?
briefly, we are a student admissions platform. We help students right now from across the entire country help figure out what is right for their career. We tell them that they need to be doing something that they're really good at, and once they identify what that really good at is, they need to be in a geography which has the right respect and the right economic opportunities for what they're doing. For example, if somebody is really talented at automotive, they need to be in Germany. If it's fashion, it needs to be France. If it needs to be sports management, it's got to be either the UK or Australia. If it's pharma manufacturing, it's got to be in India. So essentially, tell people to kind of we help them figure out what is right for them, and then we
Okay.
help them work with our coaches, counselors, work with our platform, which has got a plethora of algorithms built into it to help them understand a bunch of things about their life, their journey in kind of 360 degrees in reverse. And then as we move forward, we help them kind of connect with universities and apply to these universities from across the world. And thereafter, we kind of help them with a bunch of value-added services like education loan, visa, accommodation, all the way through till they actually reach their dorm room.
And I think even when they get there, you're also involved in making sure that they get acclimatized to the environment in the other on the other side.
Correct. That's right. So that goes as deep as ensuring an airport pickup, to kind of helping them make their first few friends, having a mentorship network, which connects them to people who have graduated from the same school a couple of years back, and that's kind of helps them have a softer landing in comparison.
So what's going to be interesting is like while other edtech platforms can say COVID was just amazing for us, right? You had like a roller coaster ride and a half, right? Because and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but it's been a very interesting edtech journey for you.
Correct. No, so very interestingly, just to come in as you say this, Anirudh, I don't think of our business as a tech. I think our business is a mix of ed tech plus migration tech, if I might call it that, plus travel
Hmm.
tech, plus fintech, and a lot of those things all put together. We are very conscious of the fact that and very transparent that we're not a learning company like most other education technology companies in the country or in the world right now. We're a company that is kind of facilitating their movement into something which is next in life. I think my larger thesis of building leverage also has been that we're doing long form migration. We believe that when people move from one place to another, to kind of set up their life, set up their career, great things happen, magic happens. Everything that I've done in life essentially has kind of been woven through that thread. So yes, we're doing long form migration in some sense, and we would just want to be kind of the best at that.
What's it going to be? And I think on that cue, because I think long form migration is something we talked about earlier. I think your life is all about long form migration as well. So I think on that cue, we're going to get into a little bit about, you started off in Delhi,
Hmm.
and after graduating, you did not do your MBA right away, right? You decided to go in for some experience. You joined, I believe, ISEC first, then KPMG,
Hmm.
private equity pro partners, then KPMG, and then ENY before returning back to school at ISB. So
Hmm.
and that usually was not a very common journey at that time. People used to just think that Sida, let's finish our college and immediately let's go to MBA, right? But you decided to take a break and get into the professional world for a pretty good period of time. Right? Why take that different kind of a journey? What was the role ISEC played?
So Anirudh, so there's a background journey that was happening to everything that you've described as well. So I was always, I would, and the next time we meet in person, I think we should do that. So I'm a startup nerd, and I take a lot of pride in saying that. So I think at least before starting Leverage till 2016, everything that has ever happened in the startup ecosystem, be it in the Valley, be it in Israel, be it in India. That's something that I would kind of really be able to kind of call upon in like to one degree. And be it in 1955-56, what was happening in the VC space in the Valley, be it something that was happening in the late 1990s for the Indian tech ecosystem, like Rajesh Jain coming in and building a company which was kind of sold for 499 crores, or Red F going all the way to $10 billion and then
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately crashing down. So I was a kid who in my early years, my parents' biggest dream was that I should be able to have a conversation in English. So I read a lot of books. So I read a lot of, I got my Oliver Twist and Jane Eyre out of the way by 7 or 8, and then started reading a lot of non-fiction specifically focused on Silicon Valley. So those are दो के अंदर मैं सारी किताबें पढ़ रहा था about what happened in the dot-com boom bust when I was in my early teenage years of sorts. And that is when I kind of developed this fascination with the startup ecosystem. So the parallel journey which was happening in my life, which is not there on the resume that you kind of spoke about, is in 2006-7. I started helping host this event called Startup Saturday. This used to be an
Okay.
American center in Delhi, and my simple job back then was that so entrepreneurs used to come in, chat with a bunch of very small set of startup hopefuls of sorts when the ecosystem was kind of it was very naive in some sense. And I remember hosting Sanjeev Bikhchandani sir, Deep Kalra sir, Ankur Singla, who later went on to kind of start Tabzo. And my job was that वहाँ पे 30-35 लोग इकट्ठे होने चाहिए, वो इनमें ताली मारेंगे और मेरे को 100 रुपए मिलेगा. So I
Correct.
developed this fascination of sorts कि startup में काम करना है, startup करना है, all of those things from a very early age. And I did a bunch of entrepreneurial things even when I was growing up in school, college. कुछ ना कुछ मैं side में, there was always a side hustle happening.
What was the first entrepreneurial stint that you had?
My first entrepreneurial stint was in class 3 when my dad was a journalist. I used to, as part of being a journalist, he used to go to a lot of 5-star hotels and he used to get these writing pads. So Shangri-La का
Okay.
writing pad, Taj का writing pad, किसी और होटल का writing pad, ललित का writing pad. तो मैं वो writing pad actually स्कूल में बेचता था क्योंकि उसकी क्वालिटी ज़्यादा अच्छी होती थी. And they sell it for 15 rupees, 20 rupees, 25 rupees.
Wow.
So that was the first one. The next year, I used to live in a government house in Delhi, and if you've seen Delhi government houses, तो घर तो छोटे होते हैं पर public spaces काफी बड़ी होती हैं. तो जैसे चारों तरफ घर और बीच में एक बहुत बड़ा lawn जहाँ पे बच्चे क्रिकेट खेल सकते हैं. So what I did was I realized that my parents, of course, I think I was privileged in that sense. They overspent to ensure that I have a better quality of life. So I was the only guy in my entire colony who had access to a computer. और उस वक्त कंप्यूटर एसेंशियल खुद असेंबल करता था जाके नेहरू प्रेस से मॉनिटर अलग लेके आते थे सीपीयू अलग लेके आते थे ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स सो आई रियलाइज दैट यार आई हैव नाउ काइंड ऑफ played my Prince of Persia. I have now read all these books. I have now kind of read all my Archies. How do I kind of make money on this? So when I was in class 4, I started a small club of sorts. I used to make 100 rupees. 6 to 8 p.m. people used to come in balcony. Somebody was playing a computer game. Somebody was reading a book. Somebody was watching Disney or on TV, which used to come on ZTV. I remember back in the day. And I would make 100 rupees. So in fact, when I think back in hindsight, I could have dropped out, of course, and continued this business. And I would have a very beautiful LTV chart as well. किसी investor को मैं दिखाता और शायद ज़्यादा बड़ा business बन गया होता. But so those are things that were essentially happening through and through. And in 2009-10, I remember because I was a BCom honors from Delhi University, so I met Praveen Sinha from Jabong. I met Rohit Bansal from Snapdeal, Kunal from Snapdeal in 2010-11. And I said, hey, you know what? I want to be part of the startup ecosystem. Give me a job. And everybody would tell me कि यार नहीं ना यार तू BCom है तू प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर नहीं बन सकता क्योंकि प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर तो सिर्फ engineers बनते हैं. Thankfully, I think I'm also kind of proving that wrong as we go out and kind of hire our product team right now. But it was very, very fixated towards that mindset. If you can't communicate with an engineer in a very specific language, you can't essentially make a product manager. And so everything I was doing that you mentioned, just to kind of close out that loop, be it that small internship with private equity pro partners where I learned how to build financial models, to a couple of other things. With EY, I was kind of serving technology clients. It was all fixated towards how do I do something which can help me move to the startup world. In the end, I realized that nothing can. So hence I ended up doing an MBA, and that's when I kind of.
But you know what's very interesting is that you were trying to. It seems that you were trying to say, okay, what are the elements that I need to become a founder, and then start building those. Start going to different jobs and making sure those elements were fulfilled. Is that something that obviously may not have thought about it at that time? But when I look at the journey, it seems like that's what you were doing. Like this is what a founder needs to be, and this is where I'm at, and I need to fill this gap, right? So let me just figure out the jobs where I can do that.
in hindsight, I think it makes for the perfect story, Anirudh. So of course, I did not think that deeply as I went through the journey,
Yeah,
but
like
definitely,
I said, it's always you never think linear, right? It's never linear. It's always linear in the when you look back, right? Oh, this all makes sense now. But
but I think the next time I meet an investor who asks me about my journey, I'm going to tell them that boss, मैं actually मुझे पता था कि मुझे यहाँ पे पहुँचना है, and I was just figuring out all these experiences, and I was just making the check marks.
so, so we'll have to
But
tell the team
thank
to edit
you.
edit this part out whenever this gets posted.
No, but thank you.
No, but I'm really impressed. I think it's a very so because when I obviously was in the US in 2010, so I was, but when I came here, I started realizing, especially because of my cousins and stuff, that the whole thing was IIT kar lo, immediately IIM kar lo.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then I used to be like, yeah, but what's the use? Like, you have no experience and you're doing an MBA. When you graduate, you're just going to be a bookish MBA like everybody else. But
Correct.
that was the mindset, and I think I don't know if you did it by design, but it really worked out by design for you, right? That you took some
Hmm.
time, got yourself situated in the market, then went to an MBA with a relevant experience, almost 5 years of work ex, and then got
I
an
think
MBA
Anirudh,
at IIT.
no, Anirudh, I think, and this is something that when I kind of break out the students who use Leverage Edu as well, and I can always use this nomenclature. I think I was a very small subsection of students in India who, at this stage, have some form of privilege. I think 97
Hmm.
to 98% students in this country don't have any privilege at all, and
Hmm.
they end up kind of following the rut. But the remaining, a very small subsegment actually, and when I say privilege, I mean two forms of privilege. Privilege would either be where you were born, or privilege should also be having informational privilege. So I had informational privilege where I'd worked in with people, I'd interned with folks who would tell me that Akshay यार ये अलग एग्जाम दे ले, GMAT दे ले, 2 साल एक्सपीरियंस कर ले, इस कंपनी में काम कर तो essentially chances better होंगे MBA के, इससे मिल ले. So I think I was the biggest. I think my success in my early years was that I was able to get a lot of mentors for myself who would keep telling me that
Hmm.
okay, this is the right thing to do and this is not the right thing to do. And I think that just kind of paved the way forward for me. But I think most students aren't as lucky as I was, and hence leverage it.
But it's interesting you call it luck. How were you finding these mentors? Like
So
what was your
very
secret sauce?
I think I was I was fortunate, and I think that's by design in some sense because and my privilege in some sense as well because my parents made sure I'm an extrovert because they like I said, my parents' biggest dream was that I should be able to have a conversation in English. So even right now, I'm kind of fulfilling my parents' dream. So the idea was that जाओ और लोगों से बात करो. I remember my first mentor back when I was 17, 18 years old was this guy called who's like an elder brother to me even right now, Arjun Mehta, who was a CFO of American Express, and he's the guy who would essentially kind of get me to a bar and kind of help me kind of go into adulthood and tell me he was an ISB alum and he would tell me कि यार तू ISB में जा तो वहाँ से तेरी लाइफ बन जाएगी और basic fundamental इकट्ठा हो जाएगा, all of those things. So I think my idea of kind of doing this day in day out was and I remember by the way in 2011 I got this award from LinkedIn, and this is when Deep Nishar used to head LinkedIn. He later went to SoftBank, of being one of the most active people on LinkedIn for my age group, 20 to 23. And that is because I used to
Wow.
very obsessively use the LinkedIn DM. So I would reach out to 100 people, and I know that 50 people would essentially say fuck off. And then the
Hmm.
remaining, again, sorry for the language, sorry for the French there, but 10 people would say यार कि हाँ नहीं यार बंदा सही है, हसल कर रहा है, मिलते हैं. 5 लोग actually कॉफी पियेंगे और 3 लोग तो essentially दोस्ती कर लेंगे. So I think I followed that go all in strategy and met as many people as you can. So I think, and I think there's an analogy just to kind of drag it for a second. That analogy is true for fundraising as well. So when I was raising money for
Hmm.
the first time, people told me that there are two ways to fundraise. One is that you be that pretty guy or pretty girl who sits in the corner of a classroom and says that I won't approach anybody. Let people come to me. That will make me seem more
Correct.
pricing and things like that. I won't go to an investor. Versus somebody who says that यार नहीं नहीं मैं जाके सबको अपनी कहानी सुनाऊंगा. मेरी कहानी किसी एक को पसंद आएगी, but I'll essentially go and at least date 100 people of sorts. So I've always believed that there is more merit in the latter because there is more learning in the latter. Because the more people that you essentially do it with, you're essentially building more fundamentals for yourself. And that is at least something that I followed, be it while finding mentors or be it while raising funds or whatnot.
And I mean, I think I really appreciate the humility that you obviously put a lot of credit to your parents, right? But I think on the other end, it still requires their initiative, right? Because you can have all the opportunity in the world, but you got to get out there and make it happen, right? So, I mean, centuries aren't made inside the dressing room. You got to go outside and start hitting the ball eventually, right?
Well said, sir.
Uh,
Thank you.
but interestingly, like when you got to ISB, right? And that I think that was probably a pivotal moment because many things happened post that. We'll get into that right now. But you did your MBA in strategy, leadership, marketing, a double major, right? And like, what were you trying to gain out of that experience? Like you said, your friend who told you that ISB चले जाएगा, life बन जाएगी. But what
Hmm.
were you trying to gain out of that experience? Was there an entrepreneurial stint, or were you still trying to say, okay, let me do this, and I want to now look at senior management in a Snapdeal or in a Baba Jobs kind of a startup?
Hmm. No, not at all. Also, the idea, I think, wasn't at all to uh, become kind of work in an XYZ company. The idea always for me was very, very clear. I wanted to be part of the tech ecosystem. And to be super honest, that obsession wasn't there to be a founder per se. The obsession was
Okay.
to kind of fall in love with the problem and solve for that. And I, in fact, believe that my last role before starting Leverage at Baba Job, I fell in love with the problem so much. I think had we continued solving the problem, I wouldn't have ever started Leverage. So I think in that sense, I'm more missionary than mercenary. And I've always kind of read about people who actually list down 40 business ideas and said, अच्छा ये वाला business idea करेंगे, ये hot है अभी और ये hot नहीं है, और इसके अंदर scale जल्दी हो जाएगा, इसके अंदर funding है आसानी से मिलेगी, बुरी तरीके से मिलेगी. So I think I was always that guy who kind of got obsessed with the problem and I wanted to kind of solve that problem as well. When I went to ISB, it was a very interesting time as well because I had done a stint with a political party just 6 months before that. And
Hmm.
when I was applying to business schools, I had applied to 6 schools, 3 schools in the US who all told me to get lost. And then 3 other schools which told me to, which gave me an admission, one in Singapore, NUS, one in UK called Sept Business School, and the other in ISB. So when I did this entire 6 month stint and I was kind of spending time in Amritsar, Varanasi, Kanpur, Nagpur, all of that, I realized that अगर धंधा करना है तो essentially इंडिया में ही रहो, अगर
Hmm.
नौकरी करनी है तो बाहर जाओ. So that was a very clear funder that kind of came into my head in 2014, and that's when kind of I still had that political hangover of sorts. So when I joined ISB, I stood up for the elections and I became a director within the student board, and that gave me a great chance to kind of look at ISB. So my entire ISB experience was not just as a student, but it was also an experience from a ISB management perspective. कि ISB कैसे grow
Interesting.
करेगा, ISB कैसे रिक्रूट करेगा मोर फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स, ISB कैसे एसेंशियली मोर इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स लेके आएगा, ISB का P&L रेड क्यों है, ब्लैक कैसे होगा, ISB एग्जीक्यूटिव MBA क्यों शुरू कर रहा है, ISB कहां से पैसा बनाता है. So I think that gave me a great chance to understand higher education. So I remember even when in 2014-15 I would tell people that, you know what, I'm starting a business in higher education. People would tell me, यार edtech तो लोगों को समझ में आता नहीं है, why the hell are you doing higher education? And this is when I think Byju's had just kind of started to sprout on the scene in
Hmm.
a very small way. And people said, अगर edtech करना है तो K-12 करो या फिर essentially coaching करो. That's what people understand in this country. And I think one thing that I take a lot of pride in, very obnoxiously, is that I stuck by my idea. I came across so many people in the first couple of years who told me that this is not the right market. We like you as a founder. Why don't we give you 70% in the supply chain company? You go ahead and run this for us. And I said, नहीं यार,
अच्छा.
मतलब I love what I'm doing and I'm going to kind of keep solving for that. So ISB, just to kind of close that loop, was a great experience for me to uh, also learn from a great set of peers, intellectually grow to a great deal, and also at the same time get exposure to people who can kind of help me to the next part. So even when we led our angel round, and we met through Professor Bhagwan Chaudhary, right? So he was
Correct.
one of the angels, and a couple of other professors. So I had 4 professors as my angels and 8 alumni from ISB overall. So I
Wow.
think it would have been difficult to raise that angel round without the ISB alumni support as well. So I think building that network was very pivotal to everything that I did afterward in my life as well, be it in the US for a couple of months and then essentially as I move forward in multiple roles as well. And
And
even
I
to
think
hire
I think that
people.
uh in fact, to be honest, I think MBA school is not less about the education, more about the networks. I feel, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
more about the experiences, and I
And
think
also,
that's
that said, Anirudh, I
yeah.
would also say what helped me at business school also was this ability to start thinking in structures and kind of building fundamentals. As somebody who wasn't an engineer, and I kind of found this newfound respect for engineers in when I was doing my MBA. that I think as an engineering student, you are told to think in structures and approach problem solving in a certain way, which is why you see a lot of founders coming in from IITs, and rightly so. Which is not true when you do a commerce degree, which is not true essentially when you do something else. With due respect to those programs as well. So I think in that sense, when you pursue a management degree, it at least one builds fascination to multiple businesses that have kind of sprouted across the entire world. If you look at it from the lens of history management, and second, it also helps you start thinking in terms of breaking a problem into four different pieces, and then essentially approaching it in a very first principle way and then solving for it. I think at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, as a company grows, I realize that that's the only skill that can really be useful at scale as you go out and solve more and more problems every single day.
So, and then let's talk about Draper University. I think you're the first guest I've had that has gone to Draper
Hmm. Hmm.
University. Very, very prestigious, very, very sought after program to be in. How did you get in? And let's talk about your experience at Draper.
Sure. So Anirudh, in fact, hinges on the previous piece only. So when I was writing to a lot of people, when I was applying for my MBA, I ended up writing to a lady called Heidi Roizen, who was a Stanford MBA, and she has a Harvard Business School case study on her as one of the most networked people in the world, and she was great friends with both. She was the only person in the Valley who was best friends with both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And she was kind enough, and she wrote back to me and told me that, hey, you know what, I can't be your mentor, I'm super busy. She was a partner at DFJ Ventures. So DFJ Ventures used
Okay.
to run Tim Draper used to run Draper University. And I told her that, hey, you know what, I know you're super busy, but can I just write one simple email to you every month? And I think and she talks about it. In fact, I'll share that link with you sometime. She spoke about this at another event that she was speaking at in 2016 or 17. She's like, hey, on a whim, I said yes to this guy because he was just very polite in his email. And I literally put that on my calendar, and I used to kind of write on every single 15th, hey, this is, you know what, this is what is happening in my life. I'm trying to kind of make this shift. Now I've got to business school. Now I'm reading this case study. Now I'm doing this. And one fine day in 2014 September, when Leverage was in its very initial avatar, I was just discussing it with a professor called Professor Anindya Ghosh, who's a director at NYU Stern. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when Heidi reached out to me and said, hey, you know what, you've always wanted to be in Silicon Valley. You keep sharing all these stories. There's this fellowship which has come in. Why don't you apply for it? And I'll kind of put in a word for you. And that's how it happened. And I finished ISB on 10th April. On 11th April, I picked up the first flight to go to San Francisco. It was a big deal in my extended khandan कि कोई मतलब अमेरिका गया है, Statue of Liberty जाके देखेगा and all of those things, right? And मेरे लिए बड़ा fascination था. And I also, it was very funny for me when I went to SF that I realized that SF is no different than Vasant Kunj. It's like सेम ही तो है, मतलब दूर से ऐसा लगता था कि अमेरिका is going to be super fancy. यहाँ पर भी लोग सिगरेट मतलब फुटपाथ पे फेंक देते हैं, ऐसा कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है. Not until I got to New York Times Square did I really realize what that US is like slightly different when I saw all those dazzling billboards. But anyway, so I think Draper was great again from a fundamental structure building perspective. They gave us a chance to hear from people like great founders, like the founders of Airbnb, Elon Musk in a larger classroom session, and a lot of other Series B, Series C, Series D founders. Tim Draper himself kind of used to spend time with the entire group. And I also realized that Silicon Valley is magical because there's this amazing attitude. I think parts of it we have already started to kind of experience in the Indian startup ecosystem as well, but still we haven't kind of got there. Silicon Valley, because people are so, they go out there to kind of help you, and hence that overall environment nurtures the entrepreneurial spirit in some sense. So I remember writing to Tim Draper, who's essentially such a senior guy. He has invested in companies like what Skype, Tesla, SpaceX, all of that. And I tell him that, hey, you know what, like I'm an Indian, I was a big fan of Sabir Bhatia. Can I just go in and meet Sabir Bhatia as well? And he immediately writes an email to Sabir Bhatia in the next 2 minutes, and I
Oh
land up
wow.
in Palo Alto meeting Sabir Bhatia in a very fancy restaurant. He comes in a very swanky car, and I think I think just a lot of those introductions, meeting a lot of those fancy people in the valley, and I remember meeting
Oh
Bill Draper.
wow. Akshay looks so different in this. I was like, ये photo Akshay की है.
Chunky as hell. No, I remember meeting a lot of these folks, and I think what that really helped was that it helped me build an ecosystem in the US,
Mm-hmm.
and which I think has also been helpful. We got a lot of Silicon Valley angels when I was raising my angel round. It helped me, for example, when Bloom Ventures came in to invest. That was a combination of a lot of things. That was a combination of uh,
I think we'll get into the funding conversation, but I really want
sure,
to talk about
sure.
like after you came back from Draper, and that you
Hmm.
talked about this right before we went live. You came back and you decided to first join Snapdeal, right? And
Hmm.
you were there for about 6 months, and you were, so you go to a university which all talks about entrepreneurship, like how to become an entrepreneur, but you come back and decide
समझाता
to
हूँ वो
join a
story
startup.
आपको. Done.
Exactly, and then
So
after that, Baba Jobs. I want to understand how this happened.
sure. So हुआ क्या कि when I had gone to Draper, while I had gone on a scholarship, my flight tickets were very kindly paid off by Kunal Behl from Snapdeal, and my
Oh wow.
accommodation was sponsored by Thai, and through a referral by Deep Kalra sir, because I shadowed Deep Kalra for an entire day from breakfast to night. Again, a lot of
Hmm.
hustle there. So thanks to kind of knowing these guys, and I often say that I kind of publicly grew up in front of the Indian startup ecosystem, at least in the Delhi Indian startup ecosystem, right? So, when everything was happening, and Leverage in its initial avatar around that time was a very dirty looking orange app, which would help students meet mentors who were like them, and mentors would give them career advice. Students would it would be free for the students. Mentors would get karma points for helping on the students, and these karma
Yeah.
points could be redeemed at outlets like Levi's, Apple, Starbucks, all of that. So think of it as Cred 1.0 in some sense. But
Correct.
because my name is not Kunal Shah and I don't look anything like him, and nobody paid any heed to this idea. And people would ask me random yet important questions like, where the hell is Dhanda? How do you monetize this? And I would go back to them. And I was a kid of the late 2000s, early 2010s. I would tell them that, yaar, Dhanda Banda kya hota hai? Matlab, let me get to 5 million installs. At that point of time, we had 8,000 installs in the app. And just before entering the program. And you've seen this phase, right? 2016 is when the rain came in India, and
Yeah.
you could feel the tremors in summer 2015 in the valley as well, when people started to ask these more hard questions. And that is when I had spoken to Kunal, and I had a standing job offer from Snapdeal as part of the entire thing. And the larger play at that point of time was कि धंधा बिल्ड करना है तो मतलब ओखला में आके करो, सैन फ्रांसिस्को में क्या धंधा बिल्ड करोगे. सो बाय द वे आई टेल दिस स्टोरी विद अ लॉट ऑफ प्राइड दैट आई केम बैक टू ओखला एंड हैड माय स्वदेश मोमेंट. मैं वापस
Yep.
इंडिया आया, मैं फिर ओखला गया, मैंने ई-कॉमर्स कंपनी में काम किया. But the other opportunity that I left around that time was to assist Adam Draper, who was Tim's son, with this Boost.vc, which is this Bitcoin accelerator that he was kind of putting forward.
Wow.
बिटकॉइन समझ में नहीं आता था, और मैं बोलता हूँ कि यार अगर शायद 2015 के अंदर उसने मुझे कुछ आधा बिटकॉइन, एक बिटकॉइन टाइप सैलरी दे दिया होता, तो लाइफ would have been very very different. So I used to narrate the story with a lot of pride until last year, and now that narrative has slightly changed. So anyway,
Hmm.
I came back, worked in Snapdeal for about less than a year. Huge fan of the founders, huge fan of a lot of folks I worked with, and but still had this so-called also realized that e-commerce is not all glam that it looks from outside. It's a mix of kind of really it's a mix of marketing plus a lot of ops, seller management, and then also logistics. I remember at some point of time, so that experience of kind of being at an e-commerce company during a Diwali is absolutely fantastic. I used to remember अलग अलग कैटेगरी के लोग आपस में लड़ाई कर रहे होते थे कि किसका माल पहले ट्रक पहुंचेगा, क्योंकि अगर माल ट्रक ही नहीं
Hmm.
पहुंचा तो अगले दिन तो सेल होगी ही नहीं. मतलब that's an absolute obvious thing. So मतलब I literally पूरे दिन काम करके 3 बजे बाइक के पीछे बैठ के ट्रक आप माल के मतलब वेयर हाउस के अंदर ले जा रहे हो, एंड दिस वाज लाइक यू हैडंट थॉट अबाउट दिस व्हेन आई वाज कमिंग बैक फ्रॉम एसएफ. So anyway, but I still had this so-called Silicon Valley hangover of sorts that no, I want to run my own thing, or I want to work in a smaller startup. I had grown on the story of Neeraj Arora, who was the fifth employee at WhatsApp, and who was also an ISB alum. So I started to kind of talk to a lot of founders who were at that Series A, Series B, Series C level, and luckily I had that access, which is when I met the founders of Baba Job. I had a senior of mine who kind
Hmm.
of introduced me to them, Rishi Dogra, who used to be the CMO there. And I loved the problem. I just fell in love with the blue and gray collar job marketplace. And at that point of time, for a while, we were the largest supplier of drivers for both Uber and Ola in both Delhi and Bangalore. We were one of the largest suppliers for delivery folks for eCart, GoJava, all of these logistics players who used to support the larger e-commerce companies. But unit economics was a slight struggle. We were trying to, I believe, we were trying to solve things through tech that we could have solved through ops. We saw Quest Corp kind of come in and build a very ops first business right in front of us, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of take a company all the way to 4,000 crore IPO. Even if it was a 2x, 3x multiple, not a very fancy 30, 40x multiple like startups right now are getting. But big fan of the founders. They built a beautiful company, beautiful culture. My boss Veer, who's one of the co-founders of Babajob, continues to be an investor in my business. But when Babajob was wrapping up and getting sold to Quicker, which is when I realized that uh, I need to give my passion project a shot. And
Mm-hmm.
in 2017, hence Leverage started
How
as a
many
business.
downloads that happened over the 2 years since you started and since
How many?
2017 when you, how many downloads or like how much traction had you gained in those 2 years when you were obviously just working on that on the side?
Sure. So Anirudh, एक side hustle की तरह चल रहा था. I was doing multiple things, and we were. I remember in the last 6 months, right before I started, there was more focus. I used to work with a friend of mine called Amisha, who was
Mm-hmm.
a senior UI person at Myntra. Now she's at H&M, and मैं अपना लेवल रोड पे सब कुछ काम खत्म करके HSR लेआउट जाता था, और उसके घर पे essentially रात को 8-9 बजे से लेके रात को 1 बजे तक उसका अपना UI जो भी मैंने फ्रेम बनाया था रिव्यू करवाता था. And those were fantastic days. So I had all of those things ready, and then we launched in January, and then I kind of quit my job in March, and then we started the company in April. But we realized very quickly that while we were trying to build a career advice marketplace, nobody would pay for something which wasn't very tangible in nature. And
Mm-hmm.
we also realized that we need to focus on things. And when we thought about college admissions, we realized that in India, you get a college admission by the basis of a number which is printed on your forehead, be it
Correct.
in CAT or JE or NEET or UPSC or whatever the whatever the exam be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
test prep companies were essentially like today, they're fantastic companies like Unacademy and Byju's and Vedantu, and a bunch of them were kind of solving test prep already. And there were Akash and Fitji and the like of those. I had met Akash Chaudhary in those early years as well. And I realized that test prep company तो नहीं build करना मुझको. And that point of time, I could see that study abroad was a very huge category. And hence, we kind of delved deeper into study abroad. And within that, also realized that there were multiple segments of the student. There was a student who was kind of very privileged, who was applying to the top 50, 60 schools. There were boutique agencies which was kind of serving the student. And then there was
Very
the
true.
rest of the market. So we realized that we'll have an iPhone kind of strategy, started from this, went all the way down. Uh, uh, I won't go further than that, but today we've essentially, I think it was very tough for people to kind of make people believe. For the longest time in my space, for the first, I think, in my 4.5 year journey, for the first 2.5 years, I've just educated people about the market. I've just kind of kept telling them कि नहीं यार देख लो टाइम ऐसा है, नहीं यार ये रिपोर्ट देखो गवर्नमेंट की, नहीं यार ये देखो WHO ने UN ने ये रिपोर्ट निकाली है, या फिर कुछ और ऐसा है कि टाइम मेरा बाद है, मतलब I will be able to build a big market here. It's only about 2 years back when things started to get a hot. Tiger kind of funded a company in New Zealand, and which went to the US. Then a couple of other pension funds kind of started to play in the space as well, which is when people realized, okay, this is a space which can grow like fire as well. And very interestingly, today, out of all the tech businesses in the world, the largest revenue multiple that a company holds in edtech is a business in the study abroad space.
Which is?
A company called Apply Board, and
Mm-hmm.
just by design, because what you're doing for the student in this category is so much more, right? Like you're essentially helping them cross over what is going to be the most pivotal part of their life. Like you rightly said, right? Like you said about 15 minutes back, that, hey Akshay, when you went to ISB, that was a very pivotal point of time for your
Yeah.
career, and that is it for essentially most of us, right? When we go in and offer higher education, so that, and then essentially the ability to do so many things alongside with a student, be it with their visa, be it with their education loan, be it with their forex accommodation, and so on and so forth. And essentially, tomorrow, even selling like there are a couple of these small time agents in Gujarat who we partner with. They also sell khakra to these students once they land up in the UK or in Canada.
Wow.
So the LTV,
That
the
that is
LTV
original.
keeps
That is
going on and
original.
on and on. You're catching them
Man,
young, and then you're kind of making them fall in love with you and your service, and then ensuring that they keep coming back to you again and again.
it's so the leverage edu journey, and obviously earlier it was called leverage and then became leverage edu, right?
Leverage.
Very in leverage, right? Like very interesting how the whole thing pivoted and how you've just adapted to the times, right? And we'll talk about, I mean, you've talked about how it went from, a mentorship discovery platform to now
Mm,
completely owning that journey, right? Of getting a
mm,
student who wants to go abroad, figuring out which university to go to based on their aptitude, etc., etc. Uh, but I think the real impetus would have probably come around COVID, right? Because that's when things got really, really interesting. Now
Hmm.
people could not travel to the US. I mean, they had to really figure this thing out when everything went kaput in early 2020. But for you, it must have there must have been some scary moments because suddenly, there's a travel ban. People can't go to the US anyway, or can't go to anywhere else in the world, and neither can they come to India. Like India also has their own, incoming student population. What were you thinking when on March 22nd the PM says, India shutting its borders, India shutting itself for 3 months? What was your reaction?
फट
Were
गई
you
थी.
were you out there? Were you out there? Were you out there banging thalis as well?
I did that one, and two. I think so. The first time I realized COVID is going to break in is when. So I think we anticipated a bunch of things, and I would be lying if I don't say कि फट गई थी. 3 महीने we completely went under.
Yeah.
Our burn reduced by about 1/6 immediately. We cut everything that there was to. We delayed our promotions. We promised the entire team. Our team around that time was about 65, 70 people. Now we're about 450,
Wow.
460 people. But we promised each of these people that we won't get a single job. The management did not take salary for about 3 to 4 months till July, and until things improved. But we made sure that things were okay, and it was just a very emotional time, right? So
Very
absolutely, it
true.
was it was damn scary for the business. I remember Bloom used to do these sessions every week around that time, and they would talk to us and make sure that यार किसी भी तरीके से अपने funds इस तरीके से पार्क कर लो कि you wake up on 1 January 2022 and you're alive. And
Yeah.
by the way, किसी ने सोचा नहीं था कि कोविड इतना लंबा चलेगा, पर चल गया, and actually we are in 2022 now. So
True.
the first time I heard about COVID, just to get a circle back on the story, when I was in the UK, and just an year before that, we had realized that now we had built a good brand name for ourselves in terms of helping every student to use a platform punch above their weight. Students are using our platform and going to the top schools across the world. So now we realized that okay, now we can go and partner with universities and help them recruit as well, which was a larger game in this segment, student recruitment. And Applyboard and had kind of gone ahead and done that in Canada. We realized that a similar opportunity is going to come up in the UK as well. So I also
Okay.
realized sometimes that in the larger ecosystems where we end up abusing the word networking. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my wins essentially just came because I was out there talking to people. For example, in my category, I was hobnobbing with the embassy folks through and through from the first day. And because of that, I realized that yeah, UK में कुछ होने वाला है. Things are going to change. I kept hearing that.
Yep.
I ended up taking like 4 trips to the UK in the latter half of 2019 and early 2020. And I remember 2020 reading Daily Mail while sitting in a public bus there and realizing that one case in London today, will things become like Brits get more scared kind of more easily, right?
Yep.
So
There's only about 2 crore of them altogether, right? So.
True. So we realized around that time that the traditional way in which the spaces worked, which is universities coming in to emerging countries like China, India, rest of South Asia, or Brazil, or wherever. Uh, so essentially doing these big education fairs of sorts in five-star hotels and convention centers. You would have seen ads for these across the entire country in or like in particular admission seasons. So we realized कि यार ये तो होने नहीं वाला है इस बार, कोई तो आएगा नहीं. मतलब अगर ट्रैवल बैन मोदी ने हमारे लिए किया है तो उनके लिए भी essentially बोरिस जॉनसन ने बैन कर
Correct.
दिया है, फिर जस्टिन ट्रूडो ने बैन कर दिया है, फिर ट्रम्प ने बैन कर दिया है. So we realized that even these guys can't move, but they still need to sustain their business. So we built a platform called UniConnect in about 12 days flat, which was a virtual fair platform. So we did the entire fair piece, but online. So a platform like this, but with features like a student could apply to a university with just one single click. A student could kind of short list universities on the basis of the program that they want to pursue, and then directly meet them.
Interesting.
There's no wall in between. Universities should also kind of come in and speak to students who are right fit for their programs. So we built out that technology out there to ensure that universities can continue to recruit, and it's still very, very student first in the entire narrative per se. And that worked like magic for us. So till that point of time, we were working with universities by pushing out the narrative that, boss, we can't give you quantity right now. We're a very small company. We're a startup. But we can send you very high quality students from India. And not
Makes
everybody
sense.
bid. We had about 15, 20 university partners in an effort about 6 to 7 months. And then in the next 4 months, while everything was happening, in about 4 months, we got about 100 to 120 partners join in. Just because we had kind
Wow.
of told people that, hey, if you want to come and kind of use UniConnect, you need to partner with us. And in our business, having a university directly work with you is a huge mode. For example, we have this
Mm-hmm.
university called Queen Mary University of London, which is a very privileged university based out of the UK. We're the first players that were given a contract to in the last 10 years. So we realized that a contract आने इतनी आसान नहीं है, and how can we kind of really go out and play our value prop? It takes multiple meetings. It takes them to kind of demonstrating features. It's enterprise sales ka baap in some sense.
Correct, correct,
And
correct.
so because of how things happened in this way, so by July things were kind of looking more rosy for us, and people were saying that okay, Jan intake hoga UK ke andar. UK was the first country to open up, and UK around the same time, my hunch proved out right, because UK in June and July then opened the new graduate route, the post-study work visa, which said that if somebody's coming in and entering the country right now, they can go out and work for 2 years after they graduate, and 3 years if they're a PhD. And that just opened the floodgates for us because we had built out this entire supply over the last 4 to 5 months. And now we
Wow.
could go out and say that, अच्छा यार, अगर जाना है UK यूनिवर्सिटी, supply मेरे पास है. So think of it like Oyo, right? अगर Oyo में आपको
Yeah.
bed चाहिए होटल के अंदर, मेरे को मतलब seat चाहिए यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर. And now we had built out the supply, and that is when our business scaled very very quickly. And uh, to give you some perspective, even towards the latter half of last year, we were helping about 100 students a single month. In comparison, by the way, when I met you, we were doing about 15 students a month in 2017, or 12 to 15
Yep.
students a month. So we're doing 100 students a month by the end of last year. Today we do about close to 1500 to 1600 students a single month. So our scale
Wow.
has massively moved.
Massively changed. And
Thanks
it's
for
we were talking about it before, right? Because unlike other edtech platform, which obviously because of the complete shutdown, almost
Hmm.
saw like a new hockey stick kind of a growth. For you really had to figure your way out because how do you like you said, how do you figure out and estimate what a government is going to do, and then ensure you've got all the back end supply ready to go at the same time.
Wasn't an easy one. I think in hindsight, just keeping our ears close to the ground, in terms of it's a multi-dimensional business. It's not a two-sided marketplace. It's a like multi-sided marketplace in some sense. So just keeping your ears close to the ground. So for example, now we have realized, just to kind of pull that thought, that we need to build much more supply as well, supply intelligence. So now we have offices in both the UK and Canada as well.
Mm-hmm.
We ensure that on the supply side, it's like a make my trip or Oyo. So to ensure that you have ears close to the ground on the consumer side, which is the student, ensure that you have ears close to the ground on the supply side, ensure that you have essentially working with players in the ecosystem as well, the governments. So we ended up, I won't name on this show, on the Damani Talks show, but I'll tell you privately. But we essentially had to get a letter from somebody higher up in the public word of UK, and using that letter, we essentially went out and told universities that, hey, we have a letter from this person. Can you please let me in? And that's how a lot of those things happened to begin with.
I mean, you have
And
to scrape. You have to go. You have to do all of those things, man, to make it work. So hats off to you, truly.
no, thank you.
But
It means
I do want to mention something. You've while all of this is going on, right? It's very interesting to keep reading your LinkedIn profile. And by the way, you've got one of the longest. There should be an award for the longest LinkedIn profile
I've
available.
cut it down, Anirudh. About 1.5 years back, somebody gave the same not so sweet compliment, and I had to cut it down. This is a trimmed down version.
Oh wow! But what I'm saying is that you've actually been involved in other activities, right? Because it's like I maybe sometimes find myself guilty about the fact that I had so many more ideas to be more socially involved, right, in other causes. I might have written checks here and there, but I've not really been able to essentially get involved, right? But you were part of the PM's a committee formed for the India 2022 policy building, right? And you did that in 2017 while you were building a startup, and you literally were at the start of building your startup, right? And I mean, how do you manage all of these things? I mean, there are entrepreneurs out here listening to you, wondering like एक startup नहीं चला पा रहे हैं, ये तो यार PM से PM को PM की committees में भी लगा हुआ है, helping other
नहीं
people
नहीं
out,
मैं
he's traveling, he's doing all of these other things
नहीं
while
definitely not as
building while building a startup almost 100x in the last 100x growth in the last 3 years.
नहीं. And so Anirudh, to be super honest, not as fancy as it looks. I spent all of 3 days in that month, and then about another 3 or 4 days, about a couple of months later. What it gave me was access to a set of folks who I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. In that month, जब मैं स्टार्टअप चला रहा था, बट मैं एंजल फंड रेज कर रहा था. आपको भी मैं उसी महीने में मिला था, बाय द वे. तो उस
Correct.
वक्त आई वाज
Correct.
थिंकिंग कि यार मैं कैसे, आई वाज दिस गाय अनिरुद्ध. I hadn't grown up to essentially say that I already know where my round will come from, or this VC will come in and write my first check. So I was actually this guy a couple of years back who had to, once an entrepreneur would finish his talk, I would or her talk, I would run up to them, tell them that, hey, I am Akshay, please take my business card, I run this small company, I'm trying to do this. I've done that about 100 times in my life and I've
Yeah.
not been tired. So this was a part of that, to a very big degree. And I got a chance to, I think, just meet a great set of people who, by spending all of 72 hours, who continue to be a great part of my life. I became great friends with Vishal Gundal was already a mentor, but to some degree, but we got close during this phase. And from 2017 to now, he's been a great mentor. I spent time with VSS, who has continued to be a mentor, and a lot of other folks as well. I would have never had access to somebody like Sridhar sir of Zoho without this event, but I was sitting next to him and Fanendra Sama and Mr. Sabarwal and a bunch of these industry luminaries discussing random things, to me random, but to them essentially very nation building. And was trying to contribute to the little I could from my experiences of having largely run ISB for a year as a director of the student board
Yeah.
and give those inputs. But I think for me, largely it was about opening up my network around that time. And I did manage to get about 12 lakh rupees from that event, which contributed towards my 2 crore seed rounds.
And before I get into this funding conversation, I do want to take this question. It's a question from the audience. Jacob Matthew asked the question like he said, loving the talk. Quick question, talking about networking. What strategy did you use to build such a strong network, especially during your early stages in your career?
Interesting. जेकब लेवरेज में ही काम करता है, पता नहीं अभी काम क्यों नहीं कर रहा और ये क्यों देख रहा है. बट इंटरेस्टिंग. तो ठीक है जेकब, ये क्वेश्चन तो 1-to-1 पे आंसर करता हूँ डिटेल में, बट largely for the larger audience, Anirudh, the idea was that I think networking is a slightly negative word. I would rather call this word building meaningful relationships. And the way you do that is by giving proof of your work. So I would always I would be fond of intros and this is how I've kind of gone out and done all my intros in the early years. I would do something for somebody. For example, if I'm writing an intro to you in my early years, I would say that, hey, Anirudh, this is what is happening in Artha Ventures. Why don't you look at, I've built out this thesis for these two spaces that you don't look at. And do you think any of these theses could be useful to you? And I think these are these 4 entrepreneurs that you should just watch out for. That's how I would kind of intro myself to a VC. If I was trying to get a job in a VC, right? Or if I'm kind of trying to write to a founder, a lot of people who work with me, in fact, Jacob wrote a very interesting email to me when he came into Leverage Edu. And a lot of people who essentially work very closely with me even right now. These are people who essentially said that, Akshay, I saw this performance marketing campaign, but I think this copy could have been better and this design could have been better. Or essentially came across somebody who's a counselor of yours. His pitch should have also included this ROI on what this person will get once they essentially land abroad and things like that. So a lot of those ideas essentially come from the ability to essentially, that a lot of good ideas come to, I would say, people like you, or people essentially that people want to network with from the ground. And people on the ground who can essentially supply them with these good ideas, who can essentially make themselves useful, who can essentially show that there's somebody worthy to connect with and make that extra effort. I think that plays a great part. And so that is again a slightly more qualitative answer. A more objective answer is that you just go in and in and in and in and kind of just don't give up, and you just be very persistent with your with the ability to essentially go out and introduce yourself as well, because at the same time you also would have to build out a hard skin, because there are going to be enough people as you reach out who are going to tell you that, hey, whatever XYZ, why the hell are you reaching out to me, why the hell are you bothering twice, thrice, 4 times. So I think the ability to also take a lot of
rejection.
hard skin, building you end up also, I've got this from a lot of people in my early years who would say that, Akshay, you're building a so and so projection. To not be bothered with that image, to have a hard skin, to essentially just be kind of very obsessed with what you are building, at the same time being useful to people. I've also realized that the best things that have come into my life are those where I have just selflessly, I'm kind of sounds like a Mahabharat kind of thing when I say this, but you just go about and help people without thinking what would come back. And life works in the most mysterious ways. you have the same person come back to you and make a connection to you with something absolutely random that completely changes your
True.
life and kind of moves you one level up. So I think those are some of the things that have worked very well for me.
No, and I think it's you put it really well. It's about, it really is about creating meaningful connections, and by giving before you before you
Hmm.
wanting, right? I mean, we used to do this when we used to do door to door sales, because
Hmm.
it's called a give to get, right? First give before you want to ask, right? And just give
Absolutely.
selflessly. Don't think about, don't worry about the result, right? Or don't don't get obsessed with what's going to happen, but just give. And I mean, and I to be honest, if you're reaching out to a VC and you want a job with a VC, it's something I said for a very long time. Write me a thesis and tell me where my blind spot is, right?
Hmm.
And I might get offense. It may be offensive to me. It may not. But truly, if you look at investing, or for any, I mean, every industry has its own course,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
investing is all about opinion. And you just, I mean, I literally could write a blog on what you just said. That this is how you get a job with the VC, right? Put out your bloody opinion, right, and let me know, where my blind spot is and the four guys I should be speaking to. But
No,
I now want to
absolutely.
talk about your funding journey, because it's almost a page long, in at least in my notes. So I might as well go through it. Uh, you started out with an angel round. You had Arjun Mehta, Satish Kaul, you had Anand Sankeshwarar, Alok Mittal, Kashyap Deora, Anindya Gose, Swati Desai, Swati obviously Bhagwan's wife. All these guys that put in money in 2017. Unfortunately, I ended up being the guy that has you in my anti portfolio, right? But we also met under very interesting circumstances, right? We were trying to build something between an ISB and a US university, and we met with that intention.
Correct.
But like you said, you had a lot of these kind of no's to get to the yeses. What was it like getting your first round together? After by that time you were 8 years in the 8 years in the startup ecosystem.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. Actually, 8 years. No, so super brutal. I have to kind of put it in very easy words. My first check came in from so everybody who knew me kind of started to put checks. All my peers, everybody I worked with. My first check came in from my friend Sadashiv, who's a CFO at Baba Job. He started by promising me a 5 lakh rupee check, and we used to do these walks post lunch in Bangalore, in
Mm.
central Bangalore. एंड हर बार एक दो वॉक के बाद वो 5 लाख से फिर 10 लाख हुआ, 10 लाख से 12 लाख हुआ, 15 लाख हुआ, एंड एंड एंडेड अप इन्वेस्टिंग अबाउट 20 लाख रुपीस इन द फर्स्ट राउंड.
Wow.
uh, we're getting him close to becoming a millionaire in the next couple of months. But so Sada came in. He got in a few people. I had met Anand Sankeshwar very randomly at an event, and I had introduced him to Vijay sir around that time because he was looking for an intro. And we got in touch, and he randomly WhatsApped me one fine day, who's a pretty girl in your DP? I said, she's my girlfriend. I'm looking to get married to her in the next couple of days. And we had kind of built out a relationship of kind of being friends. And he said, okay, what's up? I said, I'm raising money right now. He's like, okay, why don't we talk? And I remember him taking a decision in like 2 minutes and giving me a 60 lakh rupee check around that time. And he's like the owner of VRL, which is a 20,000 crore group in its overall since logistics, media, all of that. So a lot of those conversations came like that. And of course, so I remember I've kept this for every round since. I've kept this, I've made an Excel sheet and I do a pass fail kind of percentage. Ki kitna hit hua. So I had reached out to 88 angel investors and about 22 invested. So
Wow, that's a pretty good hit rate, though. 25% is really high.
that's a decent hit rate. And I remember this one time somebody called me to Bangalore to say that, hey, I'll give you 5 lakh rupees. And I went all the way to Bangalore, pitched for about 3 hours, went with this guy to an idli shop, had idli. And then he said, Akshay, मैं invest abhi nahi kar sakta. And this was like, came in after like some 10 to 12 rejections at a go. And everybody who had, and this is all coming from people who had kind of expected that he 5 lakh rupees to dalega, 6 lakh rupees to dalega.
Dalega, correct.
And when all these no's came in, and I was so you get into these phases, right? And I always tell people who are reaching out to me now that boss, entrepreneurship is like a lot of lows. It's 99 lows for every single up. So you got to be ready for that. You got to have a very, very hard skin. So I remember this is Koramangala, June 2017. I remember it so clearly. And as a self-punishing measure of sorts, I kept walking in like very hot धूप पड़ रही थी कड़ाके की. And I was like, I kept walking. And walking to a point where my nose started to bleed, and I had to kind of then rush to a thele wala guy, put ice and all of that, and then I was so disappointed that I was not able to kind of move forward in the round. At that point of time, I had raised about some 35-40 lakh rupees out of a corpus of 1.5 crores that we wanted to raise. 50 lakhs came in later. And that is when I went to a Starbucks, opened my laptop and had an email from Kashyap Devra, who I kind of really wanted to raise money from. And Kashyap signed up for 10 lakh rupees without asking any questions. And I think that's when my luck turned in my angel round. As soon as Kashyap came in, because he was a prolific angel investor in the larger circle, when Kashyap came in, I think a lot of people started to come in after him, and that's when he kind of went out in closer round. I remember after we closed the first 1.5, there was a small news article in Economic Times, and Alok Mittal reached out to me via Kashyap. Very interesting company. I would like to invest. Can you introduce me to the entrepreneur? And Kashyap introduced me, and then Alok called me to Gurgaon, and I went to Alok's office. And Alok started to introduce himself in the first couple of minutes. Hey, I'm Alok Mittal. I've done this. And I told him, hey, you know what? I know everything about you. I've sent you a LinkedIn request in 2012. So you can you can begin by accepting that, and then I can tell you about what we are doing. And then as I went about my pitch, he said that okay, you know what? I will invest, but a couple of my friends also want to come in and invest, and that's how kind of they came in and kind of put in the next 35-40 lakh rupees, and then a few more folks came in,
Did he
and
accept your LinkedIn request?
he accepted the LinkedIn request finally. Yes.
That's and then I mean things. 2019, you had Bloom, DSG that came in Jan. By December, they came in again. This time Bloom, DSG, Amrish Rao, Ash Lelani, Ash,
Sama Capital.
he runs another, Sama Capital runs another fund. Then 2021, and obviously money attracts money by the end of it, right? So 2021, you got Tomorrow Capital, Bloom Ventures, DSG Partners, and you got Trifecta, Karan Khemka. I mean, this is like a who's who of the startup ecosystem coming into Leverage Edu, right?
We're making a,
How do you?
we're Anirudh making a small announcement in a week, and then the who's who will essentially completely fit in. But just to kind of come back to what you were saying, I think none of these came in very easy, and I'll just narrate a quick 1 minute story. I won't take too much time. Even to kind of get the first VC investor who bit in was DSG Consumer Partners, and
Mm-hmm.
Bloom kind of followed them. But even to kind of get, and I was with Karthik about 24 hours back when I was in Bombay, and I was recalling the story. To get Karthik's time, I had to literally wait September, October, November, December, and then June. Okay, about 9 to 10 months. So I wrote to him in the month of July 2017, and I met him during the Champions of Change event. I really wanted to go and say hi to him there as well. Two people wrote an email interest to me. I thought I would get a meeting with him. All I got around that event was that he patted my shoulders and said, "Ha ha, milenge, milenge." And then I kept writing to him, and then finally he gave me time on June 7th, 2018, and this was in Starbucks in Cyber Hub, Gurgaon, and it was
Mm-hmm.
12:15 to 12:45. And if you know Anand Goyal, Milk Basket, so he was already sitting
Mm-hmm.
with Karthik, and he was having a chat, and I thought कि मतलब कुछ काफी interesting animated discussion हो रहा था around that time. And I kept looking at the watch, and Karthik kept saying like I'm just joining, I'm just joining. And he finally kind of got up from his seat at 12:50, and he said, यार आज हो नहीं पाया, मिल नहीं पाए, दोबारा रीशेड्यूल करते हैं. And I realized अगर ये दोबारा रीशेड्यूल होता मतलब 6 महीने 8 महीने और लग जाएंगे. So then I you know, wherever the hell you're going in Delhi, let me just kind of be in your car and talk to you for the next 20 minutes. And that's how I kind of got my chance with him. And this was despite doing him through multiple people, right? By that point of time, Sada, my first investor, was working with Bloom's sister business. Bhagwan was also professor of Sanjay Nath, Karthik's co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
Draper folks were LPs in Bloom Ventures,
Bloom,
second or
correct.
third fund as well. So I had multiple connects getting in, kind of going into Karthik, and still it was so difficult to get his time. And that finally I kind of got my 20 minutes, and it turned out to be a very interesting chat. And he said, "Hey, you know what? I'll come in but I'm raising my fund right now, so let me know if how things move out." And that's when we kind of get DSG Consumer Partners, Chaitanya, who back then was their India head, now is the chief operating officer of Sula. He came in. Deepak Shadatpuri met me. He told me that तू दलेर मेहंदी तो नहीं बन जाएगा ना, तू मतलब कबूतरबाजी तो नहीं करने लगेगा ना, as long as you're not doing that, I'll kind of give you the money. And so that's when, just to kind of close that thought loop, it's a very interesting one. We got in DSG Consumer Partners. We got two more VCs, two more VC term sheets. We didn't. None of that was Bloom. And but I really wanted to kind of work with Karthik. So I remember giving Karthik a call at 9:30 p.m. One late evening. This is I think late August, and I told him that, hey, you know what? I have the money now, but I really want to come and work with you. Because by that time he had also kind of built out that brand of being very founder friendly, and he had put out a long Twitter thread for Kabir of Dunzo when Kabir was kind of going through a very hard time after his just before his series and before Google came in. And I realized for the first time, Anirudh, that if a VC really wants to do a deal, they can make it happen in hours. It does not
Yeah.
take months and months. And 9:30 was that call. By 12:30 am, Karthik gave me a confirmation saying that ये 5-6 लोग हैं इसी में, अच्छा ये हाँ बोल देगा, इसको मैं मना लूंगा, इसको ऐसे and I was like, okay, fuck, that's all it took. Like, this would have taken essentially 3 to 4 months, and I would have kept waiting कि IC ने answer क्या दिया 2 हफ्ते बाद, and I'm kind of following up with an analyst, and that which is how it essentially flows in for a new entrepreneur. And that's how Bloom came in. And I think life was much better with having VCs on the cap table to guide you and kind of help you structure the company as well.
I mean, truly, man, if there's somebody that truly deserved every success, and I'm looking forward to this news in 7 days, right? I'll also make sure we repost the videos at that time, right? but
No,
it truly is a story. I mean, in hindsight, I was also just starting out with my fundraiser. Right? 2017 was when we incubated the idea of Artha Venture Fund. I was writing personal checks, and for me, if I had known the
yes.
story, I think we would have definitely invested, but we didn't get enough time, right, to discuss such a interesting story. But I'm still truly grateful because I think there is so much to learn, right? Just even the fact, like in fact, I was just talking to my principal when we were in Delhi, and I was like, I've had conversations where I've said where founders are like, what, we need to meet you, and I'm reaching Bangalore. It's going to take me 2 hours to get from the airport to wherever the heck I'm going to. You want to come pick me up at the airport? Let's sit in the car together. We'll have a chat, right? And I've actually done one where from the airport to a midpoint, I
Crazy.
dropped the founder off, picked up another founder, took him to the hotel, right? But that you as a VC when I was starting out, I had to be that shameless, right? Saying, listen, there's just way too much going on, and
I know that you
and
had fantastic reputation, and of course you've become a much bigger celebrity now. But even in 2017, I remember when I'd just come after meeting you. We briefly met for 5 minutes. I think we had a super busy day, but I went down to get a drink after that. मेरे को लगा यार Anirudh के साथ time ही नहीं मिला. And I was sitting on a table by myself, and somebody just behind me, and this is Kala Ghoda के नीचे एक cafe. I can't remember which cafe, but it was very fancy cafe. But this guy asked me because I was dressed in a suit and all of those things, and I had my laptop open and crunching Excel. It's like आप ओयो वाले से मिलने गए थे, ओयो वाले भाई साहब से मिलने गए थे. That is crazy. It's like हाँ मैं उन्हीं से मिलने गया था. अच्छा टाइम दिया उन्होंने. It's like नहीं हाँ मेरे को थोड़ा टाइम मिला, but मैं उनसे दोबारा मिलने आऊँगा. It was crazy. I was like, just by looking at my tire, this guy could essentially tell me कि मैं किससे मिलने आया हूँ.
Oh man, I didn't know this story. There is just actually just held all these stories for this moment, huh?
Glad.
But let's talk about this. I know there's a big moment coming up, but quickly saying, where do you see Leverage Edu in 5 years? Sorry, I keep saying leverage. I don't know why, but Leverage Edu.
Totally fine. I think the 5 years is a long time. Of course, in the next 3 years, we see our business in flight routes. We see ourselves monopolizing at least a few flight routes and ensuring that we build a great brand, great word of mouth for certain segments. We had a lot of students coming in from in the first 2.5 years of a journey. We had a lot of students coming in from the top cities: Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, user services to kind of go to the US. Over the last, I think 1.5 years, we have had. By the way, now we recruit students from about 700 plus cities and towns every single month. These are people who enroll on a platform and use the services. And we have very, very long tail as well. And the first the top 40% of the business comes in from the like top 50 or 60 cities. So of course, the larger focus in the next 2 to 3 years is that can we really build a very strong brand, word of mouth, and come across as a student first company, which is kind of really helping people get to certain destinations. Like in the last 1.5 years, it's in the UK. We expand into another region soon. For example, early next year, we want to kind of start doing this for Canada. At some point in time towards the next year, we want to kind of start doing Australia. So those are slightly more short-term targets of how can we kind of get to more students, expand onto our array of services. Later towards this year, we're also launching something called Leverage Finance, as part of which we'll be helping with Forex and education loan. And the larger lens...
Is that going to be NBFC led, or you're doing it off your own platform? If that's something.
So right now we have applied on the Forex bit. We applied for an FFNC license. We are awaiting RBI's note. You're the first one I'm sharing this with publicly. But on the educational loan bit, we've right now partnered with a couple of banks, some abroad and some in India, and we are largely the front face for a lot of stuff that they are kind of underwriting, or they're essentially using the credit algorithms to define whether this person can be given a loan or not, what percentage do they need to be given a loan at, and a lot of those terms and conditions that
I think
follow.
that's going to be a game changer. I truly believe that consumer finance and unlocking consumer finance is going to be a game changer for the Indian economy. But specifically in this vertical, like whoever starts realizing that the way to get your customer is also to provide a line of credit or a finance bit. I think any D2C entrepreneur, they have to
Hmm.
realize that that's, I mean, if you look at the US consumer boom, it
Hmm.
household debt to GDP boomed, and that's when consumer boomed, right? And I think
Very well said.
in India,
Very well
in India, we're at 11% of GDP in terms of
said.
household
Correct.
debt. US is at 70%, China's at 45. That's, if you ask me,
Correct.
that's the missing key. Fix
Correct.
that, and I think
Absolutely. Bang
India's
on.
consumer economy is going to be at another level altogether. So I completely agree, and I mean,
That's what I
hats
believe
off.
as well.
I truly, I think at some point, I am going to talk to you about a couple of our startups also reaching scale, but I think there could be a really good partnership there on the finance
Sure.
and on the other angles. So that's
Sure.
definitely something to talk about. But
Sure.
in between, you know, interestingly,
Hmm.
like I said, I don't think you can really keep keep one role for yourself. You've also become an angel, right? And a very interesting set of companies there, right? Catalyze X, Easy Eat, Bima Pay, Maven, Stage OTT for Bharat, Ashwata Therapeutics, Pro Ease, and all in different areas, right? I mean, some of these companies I've actually met.
Hmm.
What's the theme here, right?
Anirudh,
What's got your angel
these
juice
are
going?
no, there's no theme per se. I think largely it's been founders who I've known for a while, and I've kind of wanted to participate in the journey and learn from them. I think I've learned massively from a lot of people on that list, and I think it works both ways. I think I was very lucky to have a lot of senior founders around me when I was on my journey. I think I spoke about Vishal, right? So I think every time
Hmm.
something would go wrong, I would call Vishal at 2 a.m. in the night and tell him that यार ये फट गया है, नहीं वो tell me that नहीं यार कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, फटता रहता है, ये छोटी चीज है बहुत काफी. So I think it's very helpful to have there's something that my friend Ritesh Malik says, who built Innovate and sold it to Oyo, that एक entrepreneur का दर्द समझना बड़ा मुश्किल है. एक
Correct.
उसकी लाइफ में एक वीसी भी है, हस्बैंड बीवी भी है, बच्चे हैं, टीममेट्स भी हैं, फाउंडर्स हैं, मतलब बहुत सारे लोग हैं, बट कोई दर्द नहीं समझ सकता. सो जो एग्जैक्ट दर्द होता है ना, वो मतलब एक पीयर एंटरप्रेन्योर ही समझ सकता है. एंड आई
Hmm.
थिंक इफ यू कैन सराउंड योरसेल्फ विद मोर बिल्डर्स अराउंड योरसेल्फ, I think the journey becomes so much better in terms of how you can take better decisions. And I think everybody has blind spots, right? It just helps you kind of avoid a couple of blind spots at a time. And I think that is how I have moved about. And I don't have a lot of wealth, which means that I have parked a lot of what I've made uh, up till here in my life into startups, because I really believe in giving back. And I love this interesting approach, which essentially one of these folks in the US talks about, that you can either do philanthropy or you can create jobs. And kind of investing in startups is essentially you're creating jobs, and it's in some sense philanthropy as well. So you're doing good as well. So that's how I
Amazing.
think about it.
So how can founders reach out to you? I think we have to get to rapid fire. We're getting nudges from everywhere, but how do founders reach out to you, and you know,
I'm
what is it that you're looking for in them?
I am at Akshay001, and always up for a good conversation. I end up calling if somebody tells me that, hey Akshay, I wanna chat, blah blah blah. I tell them to come into my office after 11 p.m. and then stay on for as long as possible, and we can have as many cups of coffee as they want and keep chatting. So either you can land
I'm
up in
guessing
my
there's a
office.
bunk bed somewhere in your office where you're also hanging out post them leaving.
There is one actually, but either DM on Twitter or land up in my office Monday to Saturday any evening.
Akshay001 at the rate Akshay001. That's the Twitter handle. And guys, reach out to him. I honestly, I've got somebody I'm gonna have reach out to you right away, because I
Perfect.
think they could also become a great acquisition channel for Leverage, and we'll definitely
Lovely.
we'll talk about that. But I think I'm so I'm amazed. Truly, I thought that we would have such a different conversation than the one we've had. Right? It's not even been about, like, we talked a little bit about leverage, but it really has been such a wide range of topics. I mean, it's already been an hour and 5 or 8 or 10 minutes or something, and
Wow,
it's
really?
not, yeah, it's been an hour and 10 minutes since we've been
Oh,
speaking,
wow.
and it's we've just had such an amazing group of topics to talk about. But I think one thing one thing that I'll take away, and I think if the people that have listened through should take away, is that it's the power of the network you create, right? And I don't remember where I read this, but it's the quality of your life or the quality of your entrepreneurship even is probably going to be squared the quality of people that you have around you. And I think that's really, I mean, if you have that 2 a.m. friend, which is a Vishal Gondal who's built a Goki, or you've got VSS on speed dial, right? And somebody who'll pick up your phone and be willing to help. Trust me, that's a lot of leverage. And I think Leverage Edu might have just come later, but leverage was there all the way through.
अरे हमको डोमेन नेम नहीं मिला, उसका स्टोरी बस यही है कि leverage.com किसी और ने रखा हुआ था, तो इसलिए we added the edu.
Well,
That's it.
maybe in 7 days you'll have the money to buy it.
नहीं अभी it's not that big an announcement, but unfortunately we had cases of housing.com being bought for $500,000 and things like that. So I think
Yeah.
people are less adventurous about buying domain names as they build companies in 2020s now. So, but at some point of time, I'll have enough money to kind of get the right domain name as well.
I completely believe that will happen, and I think you're on the right path, doing the right thing, and I really believe, I think the day leverage finance takes off, from your side, it's going to be a game changer. It really is, and I look forward to seeing and
Thank
hearing
you.
about that even more.
Thank you, Anirudh.
So Akshay, I think we've got about another 5 or 8 minutes worth of questions left, which is going to be called rapid fire. I think you've been through
Sure.
it. I know you told me that you've seen at least that portion of the show, if not anything else, in preparation. So quick thing, it's going to be about 8 to 10 questions. I'll just be shooting them out to you at random. First answer that comes to mind, just go ahead and just blurt it out,
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm sure there'll be something interesting to talk about there. You're saying something?
Sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you ready? Should we go for it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, good. So I think this is obviously a Peter Thiel question. One thing that you know to be true, but very few people agree with you on this.
I think very few people agree on the fact that there's a big view that don't build in public, keep away from the market, keep under the hood, and then suddenly surprise the market. I think I've been building in public even before building in public became kind of the nomenclature for it, and I think it has only helped me so much in my life. So most people who I work with don't agree with me on this, but I think for me it's been the biggest win in my life up till here. I've had fascinating people join me on my journey, who I'm very fortunate to be working with, just because they had seen me building in public, and they are the ones who are kind of taking the company to the next level right now. I'm just kind of
And for the sake of
navigating.
clarity, when you say building in public, what does building in public mean?
It means a sharing. So it's largely sharing a journey. But it also means, more importantly, sharing your pains and sharing what you lose. All of those things as well. How open are you about this is something that I fucked up on. This is something
Hmm.
that I learned about. I started reading books, and this is something that I learned from them. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs have done
And
this.
how are you doing this actually? Do you normally write a blog on this? Are you sending out? Are you still doing the 15th email, or are you writing all this on Twitter? Like, how are you sharing that journey?
I maintain an
And
email
I'm.
list. I maintain an
Mhm.
email list. That is one, which is very exhaustive email list. Then I have a broadcast list. Then I use a software called Roam Research, in which I divide mentors into 4 categories: one, two, three, four, and the circle of mentors who I send updates to every week, and then every month, and then 3 weeks, every 3 months. Sorry, or then in half an year, and then of course. I have, for the longest time, I've been active on social media as well, and ended up kind of sharing things that we are doing as Leverage. So 95% of 97% of all my posts on social media is something that Leverage is doing or something that we're looking for. And I think that has been incredibly helpful for us as we have kind of built out our company.
How is it that all of us have 24 hours in a day and you have 42 hours, it seems?
I I've I sleep less, and I'm trying to work on that. So that is one that definitely gives me about 2 hours extra. But I think one thing that has helped me truly has been a fact that I think I calendarize my things very well. I feel very obnoxious when I say things like these. But I think my calendar is really like I exactly know what I'm doing at 8:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. and then 12:30 p.m. And then I kind of put blocks in the middle as well. So this is a
Yeah.
block where like 2 hours where this is like an open hour of sorts. I'll sit with somebody who looks at key account management in my company and kind of solve this problem. Or these are the big problems that I want to solve. So I spend a large part of my Sunday 4 p.m. onwards, right down to whatever it takes, on figuring out what I want to do for the entire week. And I'm very systematic about every single meeting that I do. I take notes on Rome research, and which essentially gives us the power of kind of connecting notes as well. And I'm also able to kind of connect multiple reviews with the other. So that just gives me a chance to extract more from that 1 hour, because I've had that plethora of record keeping, plethora of essentially having a lot more background about what I'm doing. Over time, now that I can kind of afford to do things like these, I've also started to kind of work with a couple of people, 3, 4 people who work very closely with me and kind of help me do more in my 24 hours. And that has been super helpful.
And for the sake of all the girlfriends and all the wives of entrepreneurs out there, do you calendarize your dates? Do you calendarize your dinners with the wife and the vacations?
So I've just to kind of shifting gears. So I dated my wife for 11 years before I married her. So I've been very kind of fortunate on that front. We still end up kind of doing silly things after 1:30, 2 a.m. and watching like multiple vlogs on YouTube. And she's a big, an important critic of things that happen at Leverage as well.
Hmm.
I kind of go back, tell her that, hey, you know what, this happened. And she would look at a campaign and say that, hey, you know what, things could have been like this. So I think you definitely need some form of support to essentially keep that mental peace coming in and being able to kind of focus on your work. I think I have that superpower, if I might call it, to being able to kind of manage things. And you know that if you have the right respect and the right kind of timing in the relationship, you'll be able to kind of give more time to your startup as you're building that. And I think,
Yeah, it's so
I
true.
think a very
So true.
sorry, I think a very important piece there also is that not to kind of sound it off in any different way, that you give as much, if not as much, sorry, if you give more respect to the other person's career and profession, and you kind of put them on a podium and talk about
Hmm.
their career, जिससे उनको ये लगे हमेशा कि यार ये तो मेरा करियर ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, मतलब ये तो मतलब कितना सपोर्ट कर रहा है, ये तो उसका तो साथ साथ में चल रहा है, कुछ साइड हसल टाइप में चल रहा है. So I think that's what I have done very successfully in my life. So when we spend time, I talk more about her problems and what she faced and how can she essentially do things better. So my wife is a judge in and she's in the public service in Bulandshahr in
Wow.
Uttar Pradesh.
Hats off to
So her
her.
job is far more fascinating than mine is. So she comes back at the dinner table and says that, you know what, I saw this guy walking in with the hatkadi in his hand and he was a rapist and he looked me into the eyes. एंड मैं बोलता हूँ कि हाँ यार मैंने इन्वेस्टर से बात करी है एंड इन्वेस्टर ने ऐसा बोला और मुझे ऐसा लगा. लाइक आई फील सो शैलो अबाउट माय वर्ड कि इसमें कंपनी ने इसना रिजाइन कर दिया और इसने एसेंशियली ये इसको
Oh
प्रमोट कर रहा
man,
था something like
really
that.
hats off to her, man. Hats off to her, right? Her job is one of the toughest jobs that I can imagine, right? Especially in our legal system, man. It's
Hmm.
hats off to both of you guys
No,
to
thank
make
you.
this work, right? Making this work. Good. So I guess the next question answers itself.
I'm
That
not
when do
making
you
it
get
too
your
rapid,
best
but
work?
sorry about that.
Sorry.
I'm saying I'm not making it too rapid. I realize that.
No, but I said that there's gonna be one answer which you're gonna get deeper into, right? And I think I would have never known that your wife is a judge unless I asked the first question. Uh,
Right.
so when do you get your best work done? Morning or night? And I'm guessing it's night, but
Yes. So I end up closing my day at about unfortunately 3:34.
wow, what time do you wake up?
I end up waking at about 9:30. My first review is at about 10 a.m. So I wake up just in time to kind of make to my first review.
Wow, wow. So guys, if you're tweeting, right, tweet around 2 a.m. and you'll be getting your answers before he goes to sleep.
All my tweets are between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. Like that's when I kind of take a break and I'm on the phone now. Now we set up a entity in the UK and Canada, like I said. So we have
Okay.
folks in a different time zone who I'm talking to at the end of my day as well. So now it's kind of the days designed to essentially wean off into the late hours of the IST time zone.
Amazing. Who's your favorite superhero?
My favorite superhero is Spider-Man, and and the reason for that is very interesting because I've seen all the Spider-Man movies in Hindi, and the kind of impact that these dialogues have in Hindi is like absolutely fascinating. So when the same thing is said in English, he was like, okay, ये scene चल रहा है. But when the same thing is said in Hindi, I wish I could remember something to share right now. Even the one about with power comes responsibility and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or the one about
In fact,
yes, I
the
remember.
new trailer just came out, right? Far From Home. I think it's
Yes,
coming out in
yes, yes,
December.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I did. I just remember a dialogue. This was the initial Spider-Man movie which I'd seen in Hindi, and my wife hates me for this. But there's a scene which spoke about this Spider-Man's enemy, who essentially says that उसके हमें अगर किसी को डिस्ट्रॉय करना है तो हमें उसके दिल पे वार करना है, दिल पे. And it basically talks about the entire psychology in that scene about how when you end up how you need to essentially have a very very hard skin and a very very strong heart to be able to go out to do something, to essentially be able to make any
Yeah.
impact, because whenever you're doing whatever you're doing, whenever you're doing that, you will have at least 90% people throwing stones at you. And I think that is just part and parcel of building a startup. How hard a skin can you really build through the entire piece, because the problems are not going to end, they're only going to multiply with every day.
Absolutely. Oh man, I think I wish I could just end the interview right here because this is the peak, if you ask me. Because it is about having a really thick skin, right? As an entrepreneur, like you said, there are so many. I'm glad that I've been in your shoes, right? I'm somebody who ran a company, and you got to deal with so many different things, right? So many different processes, so many different people. And yeah, it just seems that if you sometimes it happens, you try to make one faction of your entrepreneurial life happy, and that just sets another one off, and by the time you fix that one, a third one's off, and yeah, you got to have really thick skin to
Correct.
make it all work, to make all that magic potion
I
come
had
together. So
I had an investor pull out when I was on the stage when my reception was happening. मेरी शादी के दिन reception पे stage थी, and somebody walked up to me on stage and congratulated me and said, "अच्छा यार, वो जो investor था ना, उसने pull out कर लिया." He was kind of helping me put together the round, and I ended up kind of getting off the stage and just solving for that for 30 minutes and then getting back on stage. So shit can keep hitting you at all different points of time, and if there are 10 different
oh man,
parts to entrepreneurship, like you rightly said, these five don't even know what these five are doing, and this one
correct.
doesn't know what this is doing. So and there's all different facets, so there's so much context switching which is happening all that time, and I think that just makes things incredibly hard, but I think that's also the joy of it. That's why you do it.
Yep.
That makes it more fun, and you would not do it any other way.
Yeah, if it was easy, I don't think we would be doing it.
Correct, absolutely.
Share a quote that inspires you the most.
Very interesting. So it's a longer one, in fact, Anirudh. I don't know if I have it right now, but it's a quote by. If you have the time, I'll read it out to you. I have it saved in my
Please.
note. It's by Teddy Roosevelt, who was one of the U.S. presidents, and it's called "It's Not the Critic That Counts." You want me to read it out to you in about 30
Yeah,
seconds?
please. Yeah, sure.
It says, "It is not the critic." And by the way, we have it plastered in our office along a big wall, so it's the
Okay.
entire quote. It is not the critic that counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or whether diet of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is
Hmm.
marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Oh man, oh, that just gave me goosebumps. I remember reading that quote for the first time about in my door-to-door sales career, right? And it was and like because you 99% is no, right? And oh, that just gave goosebumps.
The man in the arena,
Really,
bro. It's
yeah.
like be in the fucking playground and play, man. Like be a player. Don't be the
And be
audience.
ready to take you got to take a few punches, right, before you can throw some.
Absolutely.
So
Play your
that's
game. Absolutely.
it absolutely. Oh, good. I think now I shouldn't stop because you're just taking the levels even higher. But I'll give you about three more questions. Let's see. What is one business principle that you live by?
uh, this is a life principle of sorts, and everybody who you're working with and everybody you're dealing with, you need to do good by them in your head. So I think I'm a big karmic believer of sorts. So
Hmm.
whoever you're working with, just ensure that they are better off than where they were before they met you in their journey and in your journey as well. So I think that is something that I just soar by, and I think being very transparent about it, being very honest and communicating that kind of also helps you attract the best talent in the company. So I'm like I said, I'm damn fortunate to be working with the sort of people that I'm working with at Leverage today, and these are the people who are kind of taking the company to the next level. मैं तो यहाँ पर आपके साथ बैठ के talk कर रहा हूँ. So I think having those principles in place is super important, so that you end up also having fun on the entire journey.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like having a bunch of people go across that finishing line together.
Absolutely.
What is the worst piece of advice you have ever received?
बहुत सारी वर्स्ट एडवाइस मिली है. अह,
One that stands
लोग
out.
देते ही रहते हैं. हाँ,
One that
लोग
stands out, or maybe.
लोग देते ही रहते हैं. I think just give me like 2 seconds to think. I think one that stands out is uh, I think one that I've received around hiring for pedigree,
Hmm.
and which I think does not stand true. So I think you need to hire for people who have got the basic fundamentals in place, and who
Hmm.
have the ability to kind of problem solve, and give them a long rope and get them to kind of do great things. I am by definition, and I like to think like that, and I hope others see me in this way as well. I don't think of myself as a fundraiser entrepreneur. I think of myself as an operator entrepreneur. So the joys, my joys are essentially the time I spend with my team. Sometimes those are long hours in the team जहाँ पे मैं कभी फोटो डाल देता हूँ ट्विटर पे, तो लोग मेरे को ट्रोल कर देते हैं कि कितना टॉक्सिक कल्चर है, रात को 6 बजे तक लोग काम कर रहे हैं, ये कैसी कंपनी है. लाइक ठीक है यार, तुमको नहीं काम करना तो मत काम करो यार, करो 9 से 6 काम. बट आई थिंक there's a lot of overemphasis on hiring people who come with a certain background, even in the
Hmm.
startup ecosystem right now. And I think I take a lot of pride in kind of doing away with it, and just bringing in people who have the right fundamentals in place, and taking helping them
Hire
take to
for
the next.
experience and execution versus where they came from.
Absolutely. And even if you look at a larger consumer base as well, 99% of all our students, so our typical student is not somebody who says that, Mom, Dad, I want to go to Harvard, I want to go to Wharton. A typical student is somebody who says that, Mummy, Papa, मेरे को 20 लाख रुपए दे दो, मुझे न्यू ग्रेजुएट रूट खुला है कनाडा में, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, यूके में, जहाँ पे भी मैं बहुत मेहनत करूंगा, मैं वहाँ पे बहुत मेहनत करके जॉब लूंगा, एंड वो जॉब मुझे मिल गया ना, उसके बाद मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि मैं आपको पैसे भेजूं या फिर मैं आपको बुलाऊं, ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स. So somebody who comes from this background is going to do everything that they are capable of,
Yep.
despite going to a non-top college, to be successful in life. And I, in my limited time, have had the fortune of working with a lot of rock stars like these, and I hold them in very, very high regard. And I make sure, in fact, it's very what's the right way to? I'm trying to find I have a slightly more negative word than what I would like to call it. But anyway, I make it a point to prove out that that people who came from a not so illustrious background are doing better than people who came from a slightly more illustrious pedigree background. I make it a point to prove that out. And I want to kind of create more rockstars and superstars like that, who essentially say that, okay, I did not check any of those boxes, and yet here I am still winning.
Oh wow. And I think I think there's going to be more and more opportunities to do that because many companies are not like yours are actually now saying let's not look at which university, what degree do you hold, let's look at what you've done. And I think that
Hmm.
evidence based hiring, right, like
Hmm.
prove to me you can do it,
Correct.
is really going to take off, right? And I think I mean you're really starting at the cusp of something really really big that's coming up, so that's pretty awesome. Let's
Thank
see,
you.
my second last question to you. uh, if not Leverage Edu, what is one other business you wish you would have founded?
It's very funny because largely you put leverage in the education bracket, right? And I've always thought that if it wasn't leverage, I would have been running a bar.
Wow. If
I
I wasn't
like
sending people abroad, I would have been getting them drunk.
crazy, right? It's crazy. No, so of course, matlab, the business is not that misaligned as well. We can always open a bar for students before they come in, during the process, and after they land up abroad as well. We can open a bar in UK and Australia and all of this. It's not completely not connected per se. but I've always been a big fan of businesses. I've always been a fan of experience-driven businesses in some sense, and yeah, it would have been a bar.
Wow. And I hope you still do it, right? I think with all the energy you have, it could still be a side hustle.
I hope my board members and everybody else who's looking to invest in leverage is not listening to this last part. And I want to tell them that Akshay is completely focused 24 into 7 only on leverage. He does not do anything else. Everything else happens in just 2 hours on a Sunday. I'm absolutely loaded on, focused on build and
Absolutely
grow.
focused, except for on a Thursday night at 10:30 p.m. when that I'm thinking about opening bars. Great. My
No,
last
but then
question
it's
for
a bar.
yeah.
It's a bar that is going to be like In and Out. Then, if
Yeah.
you've read about In and Out, how they went about,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of thought put towards the right value prop. There was a lot of thought put towards who's the consumer, and there was a lot of thought put towards scaling. And
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be something like that if it ever happens. I'll make sure you are the first person I dial in to raise money when it
I might be there before the ribbon gets cut.
happens. Perfect, sir. Perfect. I'm gonna hold you to
Last
that.
question. You definitely you should. And then the last question for the night. What are three books you recommend every founder should read?
Wow. So, uh, the first one from a founder perspective, I think something I'm a big fan of biographies. My
Mm-hmm.
all-time favorite book is Shoe Dog, which is written by Phil Knight, who's a creator of Nike. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that book just shows what extraordinary hustle can do. Phil Knight kind of taking a juta in his hand and going to stadiums and asking people to, can you please wear my juta? Can you please wear my juta? And essentially being a distributor for Tiger, and then essentially putting his own brand on top of it and kind of creating one of the most historic companies that has ever been created in this world, I think. So I'm a huge fan of the book Shoe Dog. Also, it's a great book in terms of team building, which I kind of am a big fan of. That the most important aspect of startup, I think. To me, is team building, and I think looking at the everyday ops matrices, solving those problems essentially comes second, and fundraising and everything else comes somewhere in the fifth or sixth pecking order. So that is one book.
I also
Second
like
book,
the fact that where that book ends. It doesn't sort of take you all the way to 2000, right? It just sort of ends like
correct,
फिर क्या हुआ? Like, and
correct.
it's a very
No,
interesting
you
book where it
very well
ends.
said. Very well said. In fact, just after I finished the book, I ended up watching a bunch of his interviews
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
morning show and all
that's what
of
it does.
those. Just because of that curiosity, किसके बाद क्या हुआ? So very
Correct,
well said.
correct.
Now the second book is huge fan of Jeff Bezos. So of course the
Mm-hmm.
everything story is like Bible. I'm now in the middle of. I've read all of his shareholder letters. I have about 65, 70 pages of notes on across all of his different shareholder letters from across the entire years, right from 1997 onward. Which spoke about customer obsession, and if you want to invest with us, you're investing with us for the long term. And the way he thought about every single aspect of the business, every single tat, about entering into new businesses and becoming a leader like very very soon. So I think there are few entrepreneurs who have been as obsessive on every single day of the journey as Jeff Bezos has been, and that is just like I just absolutely love that. So I love everything store, the original Amazon Bible, and I'm in the middle of reading Amazon Unbound now, which is part two of that, written by the same author. And the last book, I think, like I previously was mentioning to you just before the call, is a book called, which very few people have heard about, called Sovereign Individual,
Mm-hmm.
which is more like, think of it like a Homo sapiens book, which predicts a lot of things that have happened in the last 20 years. It was written in 1997, yet predicted Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. It predicted Brexit, the 2008 crisis, and it talks about us moving to a borderless world. So, and this is a good way to essentially kind of close it out as well. So, I am a big believer of the school I went to in Delhi. Its motto was Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, which means the word is a family. And I believe at a very missionary level, my mission in life also is the same thing. I want to create a more borderless world where people can kind of freely move across borders, do things that are kind of really they are the best fit at, and be able to do it in a very missionary way. So, like I said, be able to, if somebody wants to do culinary arts and be like Vikas Khanna, they should be able to do that. If somebody wants to become a great DJ, be like Nikhil Chinnappa from the early 2000s, they should be able to do that and be able to do gigs in Netherlands or Australia, maybe without a visa one day. So I believe everything else that is written in this book has turned out to be true over the last 25 years. It says that over the next 2 decades, we are moving into a world where they're going to be, if you can read my T-shirt, I don't know, it says building global citizens
Global
of tomorrow,
of
right?
tomorrow. Yep.
So we really believe, and that is my personal thesis as well, that as we move forward, countries and cities are going to compete for the most able citizens in the world. We've already seen that happening with Silicon Valley moving towards Miami, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
large companies losing talented people to Singapore or Abu Dhabi or to places like these where tax systems are more efficient. So I think that's where we're headed off to. Countries will have to be really competitive if they want to kind of keep their best citizens to themselves, and which is great, which is fantastic, and hopefully that will eventually lead into a more borderless world. We'll have an Earth flag, and hopefully when Elon Musk is able to colonize Mars, Leverage will be the company which is helping students go from planet Earth to planet Mars, because we already have the playbook together of how to send people between continents. So now we're just going to do it between planets.
Fantastic. You might find Matt Damon there.
We'll make sure we enroll you, sir.
Yeah, done. Thank you so much, Akshay. I mean, it didn't even feel like it's been an hour and 36 minutes, and
Wow.
I still think that we could have gone on to so many more topics, and this could have been like a headlining episode for us, like 3 hours of how to just build a proper business. But thank you so much. There was a lot of
Awesome.
learning. I'm truly excited to learn actually. But what's going to happen next week? I hope we could have some interim episode where you
नहीं
just
नहीं इतना
announce it to the
ज्यादा
world.
हाइप अप ज्यादा हाइप अप हो गया, इतना कुछ बड़ा नहीं है. आपने who's who बोला तो उसके अंदर essentially I made that comment, but I'll make sure I text you about that right after this talk gets over, so
Done.
you don't have to wait for the entire week.
No, wonderful. Thank you so much, and to everybody. I think just as a takeaway, just remember, right? I think networking, right, and what you're calling like having a meaningful connection is so important in your journey, right? As an entrepreneur, having the right set of mentors, and most importantly, updating them, right? I think what you're doing a commendable job of is this weekly, monthly, quarterly, and half yearly kind of updates. They've helped me a lot, right? And I write even as a VC to the ecosystem that I am a part of. Just brand, to everyone, like this is what I'm learning, and
I
help
think
me
more
out if you
than
can.
so, Anirudh, if I have to kind of just add to what you said, I think there are two ways to it. One is about you building a meaningful relationship by writing to somebody. The other part also is that when you write, it also gives you a chance to structure your thoughts in a better way. And I
Hmm.
think that is also super powerful as you kind of get into the journey where you need to have absolute clarity. I've always, when somebody tells me that, hey, I want to go out and pitch a VC or pitch an angel investor of high repute, I always tell them that, boss, the only thing that you need to be seeking is clarity. If you have clarity in terms of what you're doing, if you have clarity in terms of how your everyday looks like, if you have clarity in terms of what the company will look like in a couple of years, I think that is all that any upcoming investor is kind of looking to understand. And I think very interestingly, what we've seen, I've been reading all these DRHPs for the last month. If you look at Zomato, Nykaa, Cartrade, Paytm, any of these,
Um,
I think uh, I, and you can easily correlate success to how clear they are about what the future looks like, and that gives the person who's kind of interacting with you, even by way of just reading a document that you've prepared, that just gives them so much more confidence. And I think that's a skill that can kind of help you right from starting a company at seed stage all the way to hopefully taking the company public and interacting with lakhs and lakhs of shareholders.
and I completely endorse that point, right? I think that when you're in fact, I find it so difficult that entrepreneurs even find it difficult to communicate to their own investors on a monthly schedule. Like, what are you doing, right?
Mhm.
And like you said, if you just put it down on a piece of paper, this is what's going on, this is where I'm stuck, this is what's doing well.
Absolutely.
If you just put that out once in a month, right, it shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes, right? None of it should. You just put it out. You'll be amazed the kind of support, right, you can really activate in your network. Obviously, having your kind of network also helps, but even if you don't, right, you could actually end up building that network if you
No,
just
totally.
communicated what you needed. So on that
Totally.
point, Akshay, I think otherwise we're going to get into another tangent and another hour going in, and I think you and I might be the only ones speaking after that. So thank
So
you
thank
so
you.
much once
Thank you so
again
much.
for joining, and I truly hope that we have you back in a future episode, and we're discussing how 1500 became 22,500, right? And again, squaring that out there. and looking forward to continuing to have you as a part of the network. And thank you so much for
Thank you, Anirudh.
everything you talked about tonight. Yeah.
This was awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good
I look
night,
forward to seeing you
everybody.
in person. Cheers. Catch
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. See you guys. See everybody next Thursday, by the way.